some eyewitnesses to the death and resurrection of Jesus? Okay, that's a lot, but it's not as confusing as it sounds.
Good morning, Lincoln Heights. How are we doing today? Okay, I'll blame that on the rain. It's coming. It's great to be with you guys. My name is Jeremy, and we are in week 3 of this series. To those of you who are with us, those of you watching or listening online, so glad to have you guys a part of this as well. Going through this book, 4 small words. Hopefully you got a copy of this. And basically, how do we understand the Bible? How do we get into the Bible? How does the Bible not seem so scary? Is kind of the launching pad of this. And last week, if you were here, Chris had the entire Old Testament, essentially minus 2 chapters, in one word. Which, when he was explaining this series to me, I said, you're going to do the entire Old Testament minus 2 chapters in one word. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that's not my week. So he did that last week. He did an incredible job if you want to go and watch that in case you missed it. But today I have a much easier task. We're looking at Matthew chapter 1 to Acts chapter 1. So essentially the Gospels at the beginning of the New Testament is the material we have today. And we're going to look at the word with. What does it mean for God to be with us? That is what we're going to explore today. Now, I'm going to look at 3 different passages from the New Testament in our Gospels here that we're going to explore to unpack this idea of what does it mean for God to be with us. But I want you just to think about when it comes to who you allow to be with you, you are naturally selective. Now, for some of us, this is obvious. Like, of course, I'm not just going to let anybody be with us, right? But maybe you're like, no, I would let anybody be with me. It's like, no. You have a natural selectiveness when it comes to who do you let in, who do you allow to be with you. I saw an amazing text exchange between a couple online recently, and I wanted to show this to you. This absolutely makes me laugh. The wife, I think, is saying, are you making those noises in the backyard? To which the guy says, no, ? Well, can you check for me because it's really annoying? All right? This is just like an interesting, you can imagine a couple, like he's probably downstairs, she's upstairs maybe, and he's like, what noises are you talking about? So he's like, yeah, I'll go check. Then he says, you would not believe what it is. And then I love the panic that you can hear in her response. Why? Hurry up, answer me. What is it? Hello? Right? Like you just a succession of texts quickly. You can tell she's like, what did you find in the backyard? I need to know. And so after all these panicked texts, she gets this response. Oh, I love this. Just the photo, just this little photo, followed by a question. Can we keep it? Now, let's be honest. In case you're not sure what you're looking at, that's a raccoon, right? But it does look kind of adorable, doesn't it? And so you just see this little guy like, come on, let me in. Like, look, it's cold out here. I just want to be inside. Like, come on, let me in. And so he, just writes a simple question like, hey, can we keep it? She's not really on board with that. She says, no, don't you dare open that door. I swear if you do. Right? Again, the succession, you can tell the intrigue there. And then you get to, I don't know who this guy is, but I enjoy him because this was his response. I can explain. It seemed friendly and it looked hungry. And if you just look at the raccoon's face, that is pure delight. That is a raccoon who is drinking a bowl of milk and is like, overstimulated. The best part, I don't know if you can tell in the picture, I was trying to figure out, what is this raccoon next to? That's a dog crate, like next to it, which means this guy has set up a little home for this raccoon. Like, right, he's going to put the raccoon in the crate, have it as a pet. I love this. And the question is, would you allow a raccoon to live with your family? And you can tell as you see her text, the fear there of like, what have you allowed in, right? There's a sense of guardedness we have of what do we let be with us. Now, if you got your Bibles today, I want to encourage you to get those out. We're going to be in John chapter 14. So John is the 4th book in the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, fourth of the Gospels. And I want you to see John 14. We're going to look at a passage that is hard to believe. And in fact, it's one of those passages, if you don't know this passage is in the Bible, you would probably argue with me that there's no way that would be there. Like, if you've not read this before, you would just go, no, that doesn't sound right. And so I'm having you read this out of your own Bible, because when we get there, I don't want you to go, man, that preacher was crazy. I can't believe what he said. It's not me. I'm going to show you something Jesus said, but it's so downplayed. It's so excluded. We don't really spend time with this, and I want you to see it for yourself in your own Bible if you have a copy with you. So if you got a physical Bible, that's awesome. If you got a Bible app on a device, I encourage you to get that out as well. Love for you to read that for yourself. When we get there, that's going to be our second passage of the three we're going to look at today. Now let's begin with Matthew chapter 1. This is our first passage we're going to look at today. This is a passage we often think of when it comes to Christmas, right? But this kind of sets the idea of what does it mean for this idea of with. Matthew 1:23 says, "Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. Now, we're coming right off of the Christmas season. Probably this is fresh in your minds. You've heard this, you've seen this, right? God is with us. This addresses one of the biggest questions we have about God. Where is God? Or the way Chris asked the question last week, where does God live? Right? Like when we think about us and our life and what we're going through, and then we think about, okay, what role does God want to play with that? You are placing God somewhere, like in your mind, in your imagination, right? When you interact with God, God is somewhere. Where do you envision God to be? Now, it takes on a whole nother connotation when life gets hard. When you go through difficult things, then we ask the question, God, where are you? Almost accusatory, right? Almost like if you were closer, if you were nearer to me, I wouldn't go through what I'm going through. So maybe if you've had like a marriage fall apart, you've asked the question, where are you, God? Like, why weren't you there to help me with my marriage? I was pleading, I was asking you, but you weren't close enough to help there. Or maybe when you lost a job, you went, God, where were you there? Like you weren't close enough. Where were you? I needed you. Or maybe when you got that diagnosis and you get the phone call and everything changes and you go, God, where are you? What's going on? When that person hurt you the way that they did, you may have asked this question, God, what's going on? Where are you? Or maybe you just look at the future of the world, you watch the news, you listen to things that people are saying, and you go, where has God gone? Where is God? What is going on, right? So we often ask this question, God, are you with us? Whenever it doesn't seem as if God is, right? Whenever the results are bad, whenever it just seems like we are on our own out here, then we ask this question. So this question is way bigger than Christmas. It's not just, okay, cool, so we have Jesus, and Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. That's awesome. We really need to understand, what does that mean? Like practically, beyond the Christmas season, what does it mean for God to be with us? What does Jesus mean for us beyond that? Now, I want to give you an analogy. This is an imperfect analogy, as all analogies are, but maybe for some of you, this might help you understand God in a unique way today. Now, when you read the scriptures about Jesus and about Christ, you see him used interchangeably. You also see him used uniquely. So you often will hear something in the scriptures about the eternal presence of Christ, right? The beginning of the Gospel of John, that in the beginning was the Word, right? So a reference to Jesus. But you're going, well, Jesus physically wasn't there then. What is it talking to? So you can think about Christ as this eternal presence, this part of the Trinity that has always been, right? But then we have the physical person of Jesus, which has not always been. That there was a time Jesus was born. That's what we celebrate on Christmas. There was a time Jesus physically died, right? That's Easter, the resurrection, all of that. So we have this physical part, we have this eternal part, and it's a paradox. And many theologians for thousands of years have tried to wrap their mind around how do we explain this? How do we understand what this means? But when it comes to God being with us, I think it's worth inviting our imagination into this a little bit. So I want to give you an imperfect analogy. I want you to imagine Jesus as a balloon, okay? So this is a little J, if you can see it, a little J balloon, and this is a physical presence, right? And so I want you to imagine the physical person of Jesus, the body of Jesus, is like this balloon. But if this works, I'm also going to inflate this balloon here. Now, I want you to imagine this physical part of the balloon, right, is Jesus. But what's inside of it, the air, imagine that as the eternal presence of Christ. Okay, so you're going, well, what's the difference? In the person of Jesus, we have both. We can see Jesus, right? We can see there's a physical person, there's a body there. But Jesus embodied something. Jesus was the fullness of God. There was something that filled Jesus, and you can think of that as the eternal presence of Christ. So when we see Jesus, we're saying this is what God with us means. It is the eternal, presence of Christ filled into a person like us. Now, again, this is mysterious, and theologians have written about this for years and years and years, and you go, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is when you and I, we experience life, we go, okay, God, are you here? Are you with me? What you imagine about God is what you're going to reference, is what you're going to play on. And if you can't imagine God with you, if you don't know what that means for God to be with you, it's going to be really hard when something happens. When you enter into something, you're going, I don't know how to handle this. So I want you to just keep this here. I want you to imagine Jesus like this. This is what Jesus looks like in human form. But things get more interesting from here. Now let's go to our second passage, John chapter 14. I want to take you to verse 11, okay? And we're going to see, this is now Jesus talking. These are directly the words of Jesus. What does Jesus say about his own relationship with God? Jesus says this, just believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe because of the work you have seen me do. So Jesus is saying, look, I want you to believe that I am more than just a human in front of you. Now, for us, most of us are there already. Yeah, no problem. But for the audience that was hearing this, you can imagine they're going, you want us to view you as what? Right? So like for the initial audience that heard this, they're going, okay, are you a prophet? Are you a teacher? Are you a great rabbi? Like, what do you want us to do? And Jesus going, no, I want you to believe I'm more than just a human, that the Father is in me. This is this idea of, hey, there's something that is about me that is unique, that I am fully showing you what it looks like to be filled with Christ. So you have this eternal Christ in bodily form. He's saying, believe that, at least based on what you can see me do. That you can see I'm doing things, right, that no one else can do. And people are going, yeah, you seem to have something special about you. We've not seen this elsewhere, okay? This is the balloon. But then things get spicy in the very next verse. Look at verse 12. I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done. Stop. Anyone who believes in Jesus will do the same works Jesus did. Okay, you're going, that seems like a stretch. It gets crazier. And even greater works, because I am going to be with the Father. You want to talk about an overlooked verse in the Bible directly from the mouth of Jesus. I wanted you to read this for yourself in your own Bible so that you would see, oh, Jeremy's not just making this up, right? This is a crazy, if I just said that, hey, by the way, friends, do you know that you can do even greater things than Jesus? You'd be like, that's heresy. You can't say that, right? You look at me and go, Jeremy, you're not allowed to say that. I'm literally quoting Jesus who said that. And we go, Yeah, no, I don't know what to do with that. That's weird. I'm not sure about that. That's in your Bible, right? That's something literally Jesus said. If you have a red letter Bible, those are red words, right? Because they're directly from the mouth of Jesus. What on earth is going on here? What is Jesus talking? What does it mean that we can do what Jesus did and even greater things than Jesus? What is Jesus talking about? I had a chance to interview an author named Heather Hamilton on my podcast, and she has this book called Returning to Eden, which is fascinating the way that she has understood the scriptures. But she says this line that I think is so powerful. So it's like Jesus showed us how to build a house by going first, building his, and giving us the blueprint. But then, instead of following the blueprint and building our own house, we just marveled at the house Jesus built and worshiped it while freezing in the cold. Oh, Jesus, so cool what you did. That is awesome. And we're going to be out here. Now, I don't say this to diminish Jesus. I say this to understand what is Jesus inviting us to experience. Because I think you and I are downplaying it, right? We go, oh, Jesus is amazing. Jesus is the focal point, absolutely. But if you stare at Jesus long enough and you listen to what Jesus said, Jesus is inviting us into something a bit radical, something a bit crazy. What on earth does it mean that you and I can do the same things that Jesus did and even greater works than Jesus did? See, what it means, friends, is that you and I are also a balloon. You and I also, we're not J-shaped, right? That's Jesus. We have our own shape, and each of us have our own unique shape of who God has made us to be. But you and I are also filled with the same eternal presence of Christ because God is with us. So we can look at Jesus and go, okay, Jesus was what it looks like for a human to be filled with Christ. And then what we realize is the New Testament authors are inviting us to also be filled with Christ. You're going, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what would that do for us? Well, how do we do that? Well, we look at Jesus, we go, that's the example. That's what it looks like to be fully surrendered to the eternal presence of Christ. And we go, what would it look like for us to try that, for us to imitate that, right? We then look to Jesus as the model, not just like, well, he did something we could never do, but no, we're supposed to be like that. We're supposed to follow that example. We're supposed to allow Christ to fill us as well. Now, if you've ever seen people's attempt at imitation, oftentimes it doesn't go well. You know, we hear the word imitation, and it's not a positive connotation. Go, oh, that's an imitation, whatever. You'd go, oh, that's a knockoff, right? Because usually if you're imitating something, you're not doing it well. Now, there's a fun little game to play. I want to show you how often imitation works. Have you ever seen those like latte art designs, you know, a barista will make on top of a coffee, you order it? Evidently, that's really hard to do. I've never attempted it, but it looks like it could be hard. And so I came across online, they have baristas who are new to figuring out latte art, and they're still working on their craft. I want to show you a few pictures. I want you to guess what the barista was trying to make, okay? So this is a barista imitating, you know, some picture that they're doing, and you're going to do your best to guess. Now, when you see the photo, just yell it out if you think you know what this barista was trying to make. Here's the first one. You would think of fish, right? Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, but no, not a fish. What was the barista trying to make? A leaf? Good guess. I think it's a great fish, personally, but that was supposed to be a heart, right? So that was an attempt at a heart. Didn't go well. Definitely looks like a little tadpole or something. I'm not sure what that is. All right, how about this one? What was the barista trying to make? E.T. I totally see E.T. Not E.T. Palm tree, also great guess. Not a palm tree. A boat. Someone said it. It actually was an attempt at a boat. So maybe that one gets brownie points for being guessable. How about this one? Snowman, no. Ooh, a tornado, I like that, no. Christmas tree, Christmas decoration. I was gonna say, the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter, I could see kind of, you like, no, not a hat. That one's supposed to be a swan. So I'm not sure. Or how about one more? Baby Yoda. That's actually what it was trying to be. Actually, this one is delightfully awful. Like it's still bad, but you can actually tell what it is. Now, when it comes to, okay, so Jeremy, you're saying that you and I are supposed to be filled with Christ like Jesus. We might think ourselves doomed like this cafe art, right? Like we're not going to do a good job of this. Like, what do you mean we're supposed to imitate Jesus here? This isn't going to go well. But I want you to realize Jesus says just the opposite. Jesus says, you will do the same works I have done and even greater works. So we get to decide. Either we believe Jesus or we don't. Either we say, all right, he's on to something here. We're going to try it. We're going to take him up on this. We're going to realize that God with us is not just Jesus from afar, but that God wants to be with us in a profound way. In the book, Jared Stevens, if you've read the chapters for this one, he says this great line. He says, Jesus is God with us, but Jesus is not the end of the story of the Bible. Right? So again, you go, well, you're downplaying Jesus. No, not downplaying Jesus at all. Jesus is God with us, absolutely. But then where is Jesus inviting us to look? What is Jesus inviting us to experience? Jesus is not the end. Jesus is inviting us to imitate what he has done. Gets us to our third passage. Also very well-known passage. Matthew 28, the last verses in the Gospel of Matthew as Jesus is kind of sending them off. He says this, Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. I am with you always. It's a huge idea. God is with us in this unique way because of Jesus. But think about this. Is Jesus saying, hey, you'll never be alone because the physical body of Jesus is going to be with you? Anyone see a physical body of Jesus walking around all the time? I don't. So it's got to be something else. It's not the physical person of Jesus. What is Jesus referencing? The eternal presence of Christ that embodies us, that now fills us, just like it filled Jesus. So when we see the example of Jesus, go, oh, that's what it looks like, to allow the eternal Christ to fill our life. That is what it means when Jesus says, I will be with you. Not physically walking around. You won't see the physical body of Jesus. You will be with the eternal presence of Christ. And so Christ is in us, which is what the word for next week. You're going to explore that more next week. And the biblical authors, they use it both ways, that Christ is in us and we are in Christ, right? It can be used both ways. But the point being that God is with us. And the problem is, if you think that only refers to the physical body of Jesus, you're going to miss out on what it means for God to be with you. You go, oh yeah, well, if I could just see Jesus again, that would be awesome. But if you're looking for Jesus, you're gonna be pretty lonely because you're not gonna see the physical body of Jesus. But if you realize what Jesus is saying, that the presence of Christ fills me, fills you, that we embody the divine inside of our body, then all of a sudden God with us takes on a whole nother meaning. I recently did a wedding, and I got a glimpse of what it looks like when you see the joy of being with someone you love. There was this moment, the groom was just beside himself. I mean, just one of those, like, so emotional, so gushy, so just like, I mean, all the feels, right? And there's this moment I'm standing next to him, and his bride's about to walk down the aisle, and I have this sense of like, I bet he is just gushing. And I look over, and he's just like beaming, and there's this whole moment of like, oh man, look at this guy. He's seeing his bride walk down the aisle for the first time. They're with each other. He hasn't seen her, so powerful. My wife happened to be filming from her seat and captured the moment. So I want to show you a real quick little glimpse. I want you to watch the groom's face. Okay, you'll see me and him saying there. But I want you to watch his face, because this to me captures the joy of when you realize someone is with you and what we can experience in this power. Check this out. Such a simple little clip. I posted that to Instagram and just said, hey, love the joy on my friend's face when he sees his bride walking toward him. That video has been viewed almost 3 million times. What? Like, I've made really great content, over the years. Never gets anything, right? I post a clip of my friend just beaming, seeing his bride walk down the aisle. 3 million views. You know what I've realized? There's something about that moment you realize you are with me. That is a human emotion that a lot of people connect with. Oh, when you see that person, I'm not alone. Look, they're coming toward me. There's such power there. And I think about that look. I think that's what we should realize when we realize, God, you are with us. What would it mean to live like that? To live like we believe Jesus is not just out there somewhere, but God is with us. When you wake up in the morning, when you look at the challenges that are facing you each day, when you look at the problems you got to solve and the things you go, I don't know, what would it look like to realize God is with us? I think we would live radically different. And so I want to close with this quote from Brianna Wiest. I love this idea. She says, I hope that this is the year you stop dancing around the perimeter of who you intended to be, of what you came here to do. I hope that this is the year you learn to defy what's reasonable and build sense in a world of your own design. I hope that this is the year you discover that the floor does not only hold you up if you remain where you are standing, but with each step you take and wherever you may go, it will rise to meet you as it always has, as it always does. Christ is with you in a profound